Welcome to the Dairy News and Views podcast, a production of the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. Our podcast covers current educational, research, and industry tools available for your operation to manage healthy cows and calves while producing the highest quality dairy products. Welcome to Dairy News and Views from the ISU Dairy Team, your trusted source for timely updates, expert insights, and practical tips for the dairy community. I'm your host, Jen Bentley, Dairy Field Specialist with ISU Extension and Outreach, and I'm here with my colleague, Northwest Iowa Dairy Field Specialist Fred Hall, as we discuss today's topics. So whether you're on the farm, in the barn, or on the road, we're glad that you're tuning in. So thanks for joining me, Fred.
It's always a pleasure to have conversations about our favorite topics.
Yeah, so it's pretty timely right now as we're getting into corn silage harvest season here. And so we're lucky to have today with us, joined by Connie Kuber. She's the Vice President of Connor Agri-Science and owner of Seal Pro Barrier brand and a passionate advocate for silage safety. So Connie has spent decades helping producers improve feed quality and protect their teams. So welcome to our show, Connie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm always happy to talk about silage safety.
Yeah, so let's kind of kick things off here and kind of start out with the bigger picture about silage safety and give us an overview of why silage safety is such a critical issue.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, it's a critical issue, obviously, because of the deadliness of the silage harvest and feed out. It's something that we don't think about every day. It's something that catches us by surprise sometimes. But I know that farming in general is a very dangerous occupation. But being around silage is something that we need to be aware of all the pitfalls that can happen. Obviously, people can die in silage avalanches or falling off of a silage pile or being exposed to the orange silo gas that we have. There's a lot of different ways to meet that end. However, there's also some things that we need to think about, not just that, but there are injuries that change people's lives, that they will survive, but it will change their lives. Maybe there's a loss of a limb or paralysis or something like that. And then let's take it a step further, that those people's families are now, their lives will change as well. And that's something that we have to think about as we have family members and employees that we ask to do these different jobs around silage, which have to be done, but let's do them in a more safe way. We also can talk about, employers. I know very well that farmers hire people for the long run, and some of these employees that are on our family farms have been working for us for years and years, and they become like family. And so any kinds of life-changing events for them becomes a life-changing event for the farmer as well. And then we can also, when we talk about employers, talk about liability and the legal aspects of having a silage accident on your farm. It's just not something that anyone wants to go through. Even take away all the emotion and the family and all that kind of thing, just the legalities of it and the liabilities, insurance rates, and having OSHA on your farm, inspecting a lot of things. If we can avoid these things, it's the best. And then two, something I thought of this morning when I was preparing for this is, whenever we hear of a silage accident in the ag community, everyone kind of shudders and says, oh, in their head, oh my gosh, that could happen to me too. And so it really does something to the culture of farming, and it maybe wakes us up, but it also makes us realize how very fragile that we are and how careful that we need to be. So that's a lot of things, but it's a big picture of why silage safety is so important.
Yeah, and as we were talking about earlier before we got on the podcast here, we only do this one time a year. So it's,
Oh yeah,
it's you need those reminders to think about, okay, we're hitting this hard. I mean, everybody's working long hours, and things can go to the wayside if we're not careful. So a lot of those safety concerns start to happen. So what are
right.
some of the biggest safety concerns you're seeing during harvest?
Okay, well, during harvest, I think something that we need to establish right off the bat is that we learned a lot from Dr. Keith Bolson, and we'll talk about him a little bit later too. But Keith was the primary silage safety, if you want to say, guru in our culture, in our area here, and and he used to say that silage that is efficient is also safe, and silage that is safe is efficient. So, there's a lot that goes into making silage. It's like you said, it's a once a year thing. And we work with farmers that, they've been making silage for years and years and years, and some of them don't think that maybe they need to pay as much attention or plan as much as what we encourage them to do. But it's a once a year thing. And you may have done it for many years. However, you really need to take a step back and look at what you're doing and plan ahead so that you don't fall into a trap that you didn't intend to. And every year is different too, right? Um, your crops are different every year. Your weather's different every year. Your people that you're working with are different every year. So why not take an hour to sit down and think it all through? So you asked about the concerns at harvest. So what we prescribe for people is that you do a pre-harvest meeting, and you understand and you teach all the people that are going to be involved in the harvest as to why all these different things that we're going to be hammered on are important, like harvesting at the right dry matter. Well, that's important for silage quality, but it's also important for silage safety because it determines whether your pile is going to pack well enough. And yeah, we talk about density. Well, a denser pile is going to be less likely to cause you problems along the way. Chop length, same thing with packing. Whether you use inoculant or not to ferment faster or to preserve that feed out face when you get there. The drive over pile construction, layering in at 6-inch layers. Why it's important to pack the way you should, up and back and not on a herringbone style on the pile. All this stuff, like Dr. Bolson said, that promotes really good quality silage. If we can do everything with a safety in mind, it's the answer. So we have a pre-harvest meeting so everybody understands why those things are important, so that when I go up to my pack tractor driver and I tell him or her, you need to do this and this is why. This is when people respond better when they know why they're doing something rather than just do it. So, I mean, I do. I don't know about you too, but I
Yeah,
do.
sometimes when, somebody tells me something, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that, right? So it
Exactly.
makes your
Yeah.
eyes open to the potential hazards that could happen. Yep.
Right. So that's a big thing, is plan ahead, tell people what they're doing and why. Um, we talk about equipment. You're obviously going to get your equipment all ready to go. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to sharpen stuff. You're going to, make sure that everything's ready, and making sure that everybody knows that, you shut the key off before you get out, and choppers plug. They just do. That's just, before you figure out where it's plugged, shut the key off, take it out of the ignition, and hang it up someplace in your cab or whatever, before you put your hands someplace. Same with silage blowers, even for silage towers, that all that kind of thing. PTO shafts, be careful around those. Be sure that your clothing is right. And I remember my brother got caught in a PTO one time, and he didn't get hurt, thank goodness, but he sure lost his shirt sleeve. And thank goodness that's what happened. But things happen in the blink of an eye. Something too that we don't always think about that I've heard more and more is silo gas. And obviously we had an incident in Colorado, which was not silo gas. It was methane it was a methane digester manure pit situation. But silo gas is a nitrogen dioxide that's the reddish orange gas. I don't know. Have you ever seen that before?
I've heard of it. I've not seen it, personally, luckily, but the stories and the things that happen. Fred, have you seen it?
Absolutely. When I was a young man and we had upright silos, you could see that vividly. And a couple of years ago, we had gas coming off of a bunker, and it's heavy. So as you walk in and you see that kind of iridescent orange, brown, whatever you call that color. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind I guess I'm glad you can see it, because if that wasn't visible, you could walk right into that and it would be devastating.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have a farmer out here that we work with that he called us and said, Ron, I've got there's something going on my silage pile, and all my heifers that are next to the silage pile are in one corner, and they're trying to get away from whatever they're trying to get out that corner, And Ron said, well, go, go in your truck and kind of drive by a little bit and see if there's any orange gas coming off there. And sure enough, there was on the other side of it. And the heifers knew they shouldn't be around it. So it's it can produce, if you walk into it, it can produce sudden death. And like you said, Fred, too, the tower silos are, you need to keep those things ventilated and be careful about going into them. It happens in the first 24 to 72 hours, sometimes up to a little longer than that. And you just need to stay away from it. So anyway, that's something that came to mind. When we talk about at harvest too, let's go back to the efficient silage is safe silage. Making drive over piles that are 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, 4 feet or 3 feet of run to 1 foot of rise, and make those piles so that you can safely drive over them. When you're making bunkers, make sure that there's guardrails up on those walls. Make sure that you're not making a pile higher than what you should, so that tractor might roll off when you're trying to pack those edges, which is so crucial. So those kinds of things, filling correctly, making a drive over pile. And something else too is we do a density check every once in a while on a pile. And we promote this, that you not only check all these dry matters and kernel processing and all chop length and all that on an hourly basis, but also you get up on that pile. And the quick check for density is, if you walk up there and you can see the tops of your boots, you're doing a fairly good job, of packing. If you are sinking up past the tops of your boots up into your calves, you're not packing that very well. And we have to remember to pack every layer, not just put a bunch of silage on there and then at the end of the day expect to drive over it several times and think that you got it all packed. You got to do it layer by layer. So that's the kind of quick boot check that we do. And finally, we go back to the people part of harvest, and that is to take care of yourself. I know that I mean, my dad used to be just a ball of nerves from August 1st
Mhm.
until November 1st. Um, so much adrenaline about getting harvest done, doing it fast. And I understand, I get it. I can sit here all day long and tell you, well, do this, this, and this. And I know that harvest happens and it just happens. But the more we plan ahead, the better off we are. Try though to sleep when you can. Take care of yourself, eat well, and stay hydrated. Make sure that the people you're working with stay hydrated. Um, Another thing is to wear safety vests when when you're out working on the farm, and this should be all the time anyway. People need to get used to this. We have stories of people, somebody going out to the field and somebody's chopping, and they run out to give a message to the chopper driver, and uh, chopper driver couldn't see him because they had on a brown shirt and blue jeans or whatever, and didn't even see him. And that's scary. Make sure that you get eye contact with that person that's driving whatever machinery, whether it be a silage truck or something like that, or a cut chopper. Just wear safety vests, be visible, and uh, also wear, closed-toed footwear. We see guys walking around in Crocs chopping silage. No, don't do that. Invest in some of those steel-toed boots or something that's going to protect your feet. And finally, something that is really important is to have and enforce a drug and alcohol policy. And we know that drugs and alcohol are prevalent in our society. It reaches into ag too. It does not discriminate. And it's out there. So when we're having people come in to chop for us, or even with your own people, make sure that there's not been any drugs or alcohol consumed at any time, not just on the job, but at any time during harvest, because it certainly is going to impair your judgment and your ability to make a safe harvest. So I don't know, did I miss anything there?
No, I think you covered a lot of territory. It's interesting with a few gray hairs. I look back and think when we were cutting in the community and the farm wives would have this big meal at noon. And then you'd get back out, whether you're on the cutter or blower or wherever, and boy, you were drowsy for a while.
Yeah.
And we don't see that now. We eat several smaller meals, and that keeps
Mhm.
your attention from becoming a casualty of dozing off. So we've changed over the years, and I think that's a
Mhm.
good thing.
That's a great point. That's a super point. I never thought about that. I add that to my
Mhm.
list. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Connie, do you see differences in people who are doing their own harvesting versus custom harvesters in the way that they do training?
You
Or,
know, um, y- um, yes and no. I think that to my knowledge, people who are custom choppers are going to, I mean, it is in their best interest to train their people. So, because they are being hired by somebody else, they have an additional layer of liability there. Um, and does it always happen? I'm sure it doesn't always happen.
Mhm.
But I think that people with more and more awareness are are getting used to the idea that they need to train people. We have these standards that we have to meet. Um, I think that I'm guessing that the custom operator business is maybe a little better than people who do their own, because people who do their own, maybe these employees and family members, like we said, they do it once a year.
Mhm.
The custom choppers, they go from place to place to place, and they do it that's what they do. So that, I guess that's would be my answer to that question.
I'd like to just shift a little bit on the conversation. Um, let's talk a little bit about when we're unloading that pile.
Okay. Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of safety issues that come into play, whether you're the one running the facer or the mixer wagon. And let's talk about that.
Sure, sure. Well, let's start off right away with being visible. That's one thing, is that it's a very simple thing to wear a safety vest or safety clothing or that some kind of thing like that. And for people to know who's out at the pile or bunker or who's at the silo, who's doing it and when they're doing it. We say Dr. Bolson was always big on having a buddy with you. Well, we can't always afford to have two people out at the silage pile. And quite often, the feeder is the one that's going to go around with the feed truck or the mixer wagon is the same person who is taking the silage off the face, right? So, uh, but that person needs to be checking in, or we need to check on those people routinely so that there's no issue as to where they are or what they're doing. And whether that's, letting somebody know every, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, we need to be aware of who's out there. The other thing goes back to the safe silage is efficient silage. Pitching silage off of piles, taking plastic off of piles. More and more, we've been recommending that even though we say, no, don't take that plastic off, and so, take off just as much as you need plus a few feet, let's just go ahead and take off more of it than probably what you normally do to stay away from that edge so you don't fall off the face or would get caught in an avalanche off that face. And best of all, don't go up there and don't ask somebody to go up there and pitch bad silage off. So that goes back to make it better in the first place. You won't have to worry about that. And if you take off plastic and you see that there's a spot where rain got in, we know that happens. It's not a perfect world. Take it off, take the plastic off far enough back that if that's an issue, you can get rid of that rotted silage, but you don't have to be standing, 6 inches away from the face in order for that to happen. That's one thing. We could also talk about, let's see, staying away from the face. If you're training people how to unload that silage, you need to teach them to handle the silage safely. Don't cut into the bottom of the pile first. Go from the top down. There again, the whole idea of making your silage only as high as what your unloader can handle. If you've got a bucket or if you've got a defacer or a rake or whatever, don't make it any higher than that piece of equipment can reach. That way you are able to go from the top to the bottom. Something that we talk about is staying away from the face, and that's an obvious one, but there's so many pictures still that I see on social media of people going up to the face and taking a sample or drilling a hole in it. At Counter Agriscience, we do not allow any of our people that we work with to go up to a face. There is no reason to core a silage face. And people will argue with me all day long about that. How do you get samples? How do you get samples? Well, you sample it safely by knocking down or taking off that silage off of the whole face, because you're feeding that whole face, right? You're not just feeding a 6-inch piece of it somewhere in the middle. You're doing that, and then take that pile to the side and mix that through. Take several different handfuls from different areas of that little pile that's next to the silage pile, and make your sample from there. You're going to get a much broader sample, and you're going to not be standing in front of a silage face. So we've got one other little trick that I learned at a large dairy in Minnesota several years ago, and that is to use safety cones to remind people to stay away from that face. So what you do is we always teach people that however tall your silage face is, say we've got a 10-foot silage face, which is, I know, incredibly small, but just for people who aren't really great at math like me, it works. So say we've got a 10-foot high silage pile, we would stay 3 times away the height. That would be 30 feet. So you would measure, and you do it from the side of the pile, you don't go up to the face and measure out 30 feet. You go from the side, okay, and measure out 30 feet and plop a silage safety or a safety cone down there. That's how far away you need to stay. Then you get a few more, depending on how wide your pile is, and every so long, maybe every 10, 20 feet, you put another silage or safety cone down. So then you end up with a line of safety cones 30 feet away from your face. That is and you make that line is maintained by the person who is feeding out, and it does several things. Number one, it makes that person more and more aware of, oh yeah, this is how far away I have to be from that silage face to be safe. It makes people who are on the farm more aware of, oh, that's where I need to stay. And we can put up signs all day long, but we know that the time between the time that you post a sign, everybody sees it, everybody reads it. Yep, we get it. But then as time goes on, it's a matter of a few days before we don't see that sign anymore. It's like when you're driving someplace, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but you drive someplace and you think, you get there and you go, oh, I don't remember making that right turn there.
I thought that was just me.
Yeah. Well, it's just human nature. So we don't see signs after a while, but when that safety cone line moves, then it's a refresher in our brain to remember that I need to be safe in this area. So that's the safety cone trick. It's probably the best thing that I've got as far as an easy way to remember this. So anyway, that's along with unloading correctly. One other thing that I'll mention too is that we have seen on some of these large dairies and feedlots that we work with, people have tried to mitigate that avalanche by not unloading the face straight up and down, but having it set back to an angle a little bit so that the bottom of the silage pile is out just a little bit from the top, so that it's angled just a little bit, so that maybe that would help. It's kind of the opposite of going and undercutting. It's just the opposite of that. So that's what I've got for that. What else do you see that you've seen that has worked?
Well, I think you've shared some really good tips and tricks here, Connie. Yeah, so why don't you share out some of those resources that you use for training and what you have available that producers can reach out to you for?
Sure. I'd be happy to. So we have a website, ConnorAgriscience.com, and it's CONNOR Agriscience, AGRISCIENCE.com, ConnorAgriscience.com. And we get that name from, my name is Connie, so that's C-O-N, and my husband's name is Ron, and that's spelled backwards. And that was the best we could do when we were hurrying up to file the county paperwork for our business. So, that's what we came up with, Connor AgriScience. And on there, we have a learning center where you'll find all kinds of information about kernel processing, about chop length, dry matter, all that kind of thing. But we have a big section on silage safety, and we have some videos on there, just a general one. We have a silage harvest video, we have a feed out video, and we have a sampling video. And so you can use those. They're very short, easy to understand, that kind of thing. We work with a gentleman in Mexico, Dr. Hugo Ramirez, who is near and dear to Iowa State. Was a former professor there. We now work with him in Mexico with our silage barrier film Seal Pro. And he will be doing some Spanish and is available for Spanish speaking materials as well. We also have a coloring book that you can order from us. It's free, whether you are a customer or a client of ours. It doesn't matter. I'm happy to send them out to everyone. And these were made in collaboration with Dr. Bolson. And people say, oh, it's a coloring book, it's for kids. Sure, it's for children, but it very quickly, after the first few pages, it goes up to, you can use this for an employee training. It makes a really good 15-minute tailgate meeting. It's very clear on things to do and not to do. We cover a lot of the things that we talked about today in this podcast. And I am happy to send those for free to anybody. All you have to do is go on that ConnerAgriscience.com website, fill out a contact page request, and I will send them out to you. We've sent over 50,000 copies of these out to people in the US, Mexico, and Canada, and are happy to do so. We've sent to count it. They make great 4-H club and FFA chapter meetings and employee training meetings, as well as family meetings. So that's what we have to offer.
Before we came on the air, I walked over and I realized that I've only got 2 of them left. So I'm going to be one of those people who's going to say, hey, send me some more, because I hand them out.
Great. That's super. I'm really glad to hear that. That's great. Good.
All right. Well, those are a lot of great resources. So I appreciate you sharing those out. And I know Keith Bolson is also very near and dear to everyone's heart. And, he was a very passionate person about silage safety and created a lot of great resource materials. And since his passing, I think some of those things have been carried on in the industry. But you want to share a little bit more about where those resources are going?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. So when Keith had retired from some of his commercial things that he was doing, he expressed to us, him and Ruthie, a concern about, gosh, what am I going to do now? And I said, Keith, silage safety is your thing. You are Mr. Silage Safety for the world. So I said, make a nonprofit silage foundation. So he did, a silage safety foundation. So he did. And I was fortunate enough to be on that board. When we lost Keith, I was asked to become the president of that board, which I did. And we tried to, make that come alive for people, which I think that we did a good job of that. But a nonprofit takes a lot of time and energy, and we decided that it would be best served to have that go to Kansas State, where Keith was a professor for so many years and got a lot of research done, did a lot of work on silage safety. So we have the Silage Safety Foundation has been dissolved now. But all of the donations, all of the information, everything has been gifted to Kansas State. So what they're doing is if you'd like, he had a handbook that he had written with Ruthie. And so all of those are there for the asking. There, it's much more technical, of course, than our coloring book. And I would highly recommend that for, and you can just write to the animal science or call the animal science department and they can get you copies of that. All of his information and videos are with them as well. They are also doing, in order to promote silage making and safety, of course, they are doing within their own department a graduates competition and symposium that will be open to the public. And that they're going to start doing that in May of next year. And so so that's where all of his resources have gone. And you know, obviously we've all, Keith was very willing to share all this information with everyone. And there's no holding back. And I've seen that time and time again in the silage industry. Those of us who are in the business of providing products, and we've all been very willing to share this information. There's no, oh, this is my information, you can't have it, because it's obvious that Dr. Bolson was very free with those kind of things. So that's where all his things are, is at Kansas State.
Yeah, I'm glad that those things are continuing, because those are pretty important resources, and
right.
That's going to live on forever. So that's really awesome to see that, and we'll include those resources in the show notes here today as well.
Yes,
so people can link to the Kansas State page as well. And I guess as we conclude here, I want to thank you for being on, but any last message you want to send out to our producers as we head into harvest? I know some are already started and some are just beginning. So
yeah, well, I might add too about the Bolson work that's being done at Kansas State. People can donate to that fund as well, and we can put some information in that show notes that I'll include to you later about where they can do that to continue that on. But as far as producers, as farmers, as chopping contractors going into silage season, for farmers, producers, chopping contractors, all those kinds of people who are working in any way with silage, is to remember that silage that is safe is also efficient, and silage that is efficient is also safe. And so please remember there's a lot that goes into silage. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I know that it's at the end of a season, and in the spring, farmers are all excited about planting these new hybrids and, you know, getting things in the ground and watching it grow and all that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, here comes this big, huge thing called silage harvest. And it's a thing that just really takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And we get to the middle of it and we kind of go, oh my God, I'm so sick of this, you know, silage business. But don't stop there. Finish strong. Make sure you do all the things that relate to silage efficiency, and you will have safe silage. So just keep at it, keep strong, keep going, win the marathon.
I think that's a good way to end the podcast here today. So I want to thank you, Connie, for sharing your expertise and passion for safety. You can find the links to Connor AgriScience's silage safety resources in our show notes, or visit connoragriscience.com if you have questions or want to do some follow-up. And we want to thank our listeners today. And until next time, please stay safe, stay informed, and keep making a difference in the dairy industry. Thanks again, Fred and Connie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or combination inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/EXT.